Alright, so we're going to start on cutting the rim strips. I had a board that was a total width about 7 inches or so, and I was able to cut this width here is 2 3/4, which is going to be the height of our rim. My total rim is going to be about 2 3/4. I'm going to put a 1/4 inch rim cap on it. But I'm leaving this as 2 3/4 to give me a little extra room. This total distance will be about 2.5 when we're all done. And so these are 42 inches long, which will be good for your 11 inch or 12 inch rims. And so now I got my table saw fence here. It's 1/4 of an inch from the fence to the blade. And I'm leaving myself a little room so I can clean them up on my thickness planer. So that's what I do. We're gonna get them down to 3/16. So just leaving myself a little room. So essentially what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna set up this little feather board here to give me some pressure and keep that held against the fence. Oops. Something like right in there. I'll tighten this down, and I'll just keep moving that feather board as we get more and more closer. So I'll just do one here, show you what I'm doing. Alright, so there we got our beginning of a rim strip, which is pretty thick again. So I'll use the side that was on the fence when I go through my thickness planer, throw that on the bottom, and then we'll get that down to the 3/16 of an inch. And so that piece of wood I just cut, I'll find the side that I wasn't using, the clean side, and then place that against the fence, and then use that to rip along. And I should be able to get a few pieces out of this. Another way to do it is on a bandsaw. If you have a nice bandsaw, you can rip it on a bandsaw as well. And that way you save some material. But my bandsaw is not that great, so this table saw works great. And this total height of my blade gets right up to that 2 3/4. So it works perfectly. Alright, so I got all my rim strips cut, first with a table saw, and then I used my thickness planer to get them down to 3/16 of an inch. And it puts us in total for 3, just over half, and that gives us a little room to work with in case we need to sand any excess off. So got them here. So the next thing we're going to do is soak these for a minimum, I'd say at least 6 hours before we throw them in our steam box. And before I start soaking them, I always take my edges and sand them down. That gets, if there's any kind of like slivering or anything going on, that'll just smooth that out. So when we start rolling them, it doesn't grab those imperfections and start splitting. So that's all I'm going to do is go over these and then roughly, just start to smooth out the corners a little bit, so nothing gets hung up when we start rolling. So that's the next thing, and then I will soak these. I'm going to soak these in my bathtub. Usually I just set them in the tub side by side, and I'll get something to hold them down so they're not surfacing on the water. So that's it, and then we'll get steam bending. All right, so the rim strips were soaking since earlier today. So over my 6-hour period, I filled my little steam generator up with water. As you can see, it's bubbling. And I've had that going for about 40 minutes. There's my little thermometer there. It's sitting at about 185, 186 or so. I got a little bucket on the back end of mine because it's not sealed very good, so that water is running off there, not onto the floor. So in this stage, you just want to get prepped for when those rim strips are done. So I put them in here. They're gonna be in there in the steam box. You can open that up. Get a little brief. There you go. Got 3 of them in there. So that'll be going for 45 minutes. I got my timer set. So I'm just getting everything ready. Got my gloves ready. There's my rolling form right there. And then I'm going to be doing this on my floor here. So I got a towel set up. Just give it soften the roll a little bit. And then 2 spring clamps, which will be going on the form. So I'll try and show you that the best I can. Probably get my camera on the floor there while I'm doing it. And then I got my string cut here. So I got we're going to use 2 of these per rim strip. So right now I got 3 in there, so we'll do 6. And then we'll tie those onto those strips, and then we can take that off the form once we get those that string tied on there. So that's it. I got 3 in there right now, so in 45 minutes I'll come back to this, and then I'll put the other 3 in there. So when you're doing this, I'd say double up your rim strips just in case any break. And we're going to sacrifice one of those rim strips that we're going to bend, and we'll use that for cowls when we're putting that on the rim form. So just make sure you have extra. If you want to do more than 6, definitely do so. If you're going to be doing more than 1 rim, depending on your steam box setup too, you could do 4, 8, etc. So that's it for now. I'll come back 45 minutes later, and we'll take these strips out of the box, and we'll be rolling them here on the floor. All right, so I just took a rim strip out of the steam box, making sure I find an end without any cracks on it. And I'm going to slide that into my rim form here. Sort of working quickly. And you're just going to slowly roll that onto the form here. And then I get to that very end. Got my spring clamps here in place. There's 1. And there's 2. So there you can see we got it on the form. Everything looks great. Then we're going to go to my bench here, and I'll put some string on there. So as you can see on these ends here, that's why we leave these long, because you can't roll it all around the circle. You'll have some flat spots. All right, so immediately pull this off the floor, and we're going to take this off the rolling form here. So I got a couple pieces of string here, and we're just going to throw those on and tie those. Just knot that. one. Oops. Alright, so we'll move that to one side of the form. And second side of the form. Do another one. Alright, just got those in place. Take our spring clamps off. You see a little spring back already. And then we're just going to inch this thing off this form here just by pulling it out of this little catch here. Make sure your strings don't come off. There we go. And then just like to slide these strings towards the outsides so we don't get any warping going on. Keep it all consistent. And there you have it. So that's it. We just let these sit aside until we're ready to do our rim form. But simple process. And we just do this over and over again. So I'm going to be doing this 6 times in a row. Hopefully all our stuff turns out good and nothing's cracking. But yeah, when you're rolling, just make sure there's not any cracks on the end, on the side that you are rolling. Try and find a good starting point when you're putting it on this little catch here. That'll help you out so it doesn't splinter and crack. But even if you do have one that cracks, just keep rolling it, and then you can use that one as your one that you're going to use for all your calls for the inside, that you can put your clamps against. So that is about it, and that is how you steam bend the rims.